Phil Connors? Phil Connors, I thought that was you. If you don't know where that line comes from, you've been living under a rock for at least 27, 28 years right now. That is one of the most iconic lines, I believe, in movie history. From the movie Groundhog Day, from the character Ned Ryerson, played by my next guest, Mr. Stephen Tobolowsky. Stephen Tobolowsky is one of the finest character actors of our time. He's been in over 200 movies, television shows. He's been on Broadway plays. We're going to dig into his career, why he chose to go into acting, what it's like being a character actor, and talk about Groundhog Day, of course. Talk a little bit about the Goldbergs, and I think one of his most interesting roles in Memento. So without further ado, watch out for that first step. It's a doozy. Here is Mr. Stephen Tobolowsky.
Our world is changing faster and faster. Humans are constantly on the go. Over 70% of people are not happy in some way. They're living in the shadows of fear, especially in their careers and life. Are we humans doomed? I don't think so. And that's where I come in. My name is Joseph Stanley Rychalsky, otherwise known as JoeWoo. Each week, I seek to uncover what it takes to truly live your life to the fullest by finding out through interviewing people what were their failures and what did it take for them to reach success. Their stories are truly inspiring, and perhaps they'll inspire you to let go of your fear and live your career and life to the fullest.
Okay, everybody, very special guest today, Mr. Stephen Tobolowsky, joining us here on the Career and Life Show. Stephen, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate it.
It's good to be here, Joe. Very good.
I love it. Thank you so much. You have been an inspiration to me and my family. And as we were talking before we came on here, it's an annual tradition now for my kids and I to do the Groundhog Ned Ryerson scene. So thank you so much for that.
Bing.
There you go. Exactly. Let's dig right into it. So I really wanted to, I found some interesting stuff about how you were great at baseball when you were younger and you had a childhood illness that stopped you in your career there before it got started. So how did you overcome something like that?
Oh, I don't know. It was certainly the illness went on for 3 years. So it was a long time and it was fairly debilitating and it was scary for what it was from ages like 12, 13, like from pretty much 13, 14, and 15. I was well when I turned 15. I became well, but I was sick from age at the end of 12, 13, 14, 15, around in there. And so my parents were scared to death and they didn't know what was wrong. I couldn't eat. I was bleeding internally, losing weight. My parents thought I had cancer. I was going to doctors constantly. Oh gosh. So it was just such an awful, I've taken out of gym classes, put into study halls.
Right.
I couldn't really do anything. Okay, so here is kind of, I'm just working my way to the answer of your question,
Sure.
which I didn't expect. I didn't expect this question. The first question being my illness is that in the study hall, I was so damn bored. There was nothing for me to study. So I thought what I would do is I would start reading Shakespeare, right? So I'm in junior high school. I don't know if I'm dying or not, and I think I'll read King Lear. And I have a hard time understanding it, first time through who is it that can say this is the worst? I think it's Albany who says that. Who is it that can say this is the worst? And somehow the lines of King Lear began to resonate with me for
wow.
some reason as a little kid. And so I continued to read Shakespeare. I continued to read some other, like Glass Menagerie, whatever. And I found that I became more and more interested in joining the speech club or the debate club. Those things I could do because they were indoors. So I began thinking, okay, maybe I'll be a politician or something and debate. And I was very good at debate. I had very good debate partners. And then our debate teacher said, we've just lost someone in a school play. Could you come in and play this supporting role in the school play? A Different Drummer was the name of the play. And they wanted me to play part of the what was it? The Barnhill Chorale. It was these two guys that followed the lead around. His name was Royal Barnhill, I think, something like that. And we'd follow him around, and we spoke together, and sometimes we spoke individually. It was like a Greek chorus. It was a very useless part. But I found it kind of amazing to rehearse, and then the terror of going out in front of the audience, and it went very well. And I remember my speech teacher said that she wanted me to continue if I would and try out for the one-act play at the end. And I got the role of Arbag Gaunt. Oh, I see now where we're going with this conversation. It just took a while, Joe.
That's okay.
So I end up getting cast in the lead of the one-act play.
Oh, wow.
And what the one-act play was actually a 5-act Moliere play, The Miser, except it was cut down to 40 minutes for high school rules. And I was playing the 80-year-old lead, Arbag Gaunt. So I'm thinking like, oh, I'm the lead of this. And our teacher, Mary Curtis, was notorious for doing things kind of off the beaten track. And so rather than just merely directing this play, she went out to one of the actors in town who was very hot at the time, a guy named David Nichols, who and this was highly illegal. I found out later, you're not supposed to do this for the one act, is bring in, a ringer to direct the play.
Sure.
So he came in and he started teaching me comic technique, is what he called it.
Wow.
Of Stephen, when, ho, and you hold the finger up and hold it, you miss, and, I know what I am going to do with you. And and he says comedy is about precision. It's about clarity. You stop, you have a full stop and hold, and the audience will start to laugh. And then you raise the laugh, and then you continue. So I learned so much about comedy technique from this young actor in Dallas. He was in his 20s and was well reviewed in all the papers, David Nichols. This was all on the sly.
Wow.
So here we go. We cut forward, and I'm going to get back to the answer to your question.
That's okay. I love this. This is great.
We cut back to the opening day of filming Groundhog Day, probably one of the most important days of my life, where I got this part. We had no idea at the time how great the movie would be and how iconic the film would be. And I'm there, nervous as can be, meeting Bill Murray. Harold Ramis wanted me to meet Bill, and Bill is very intimidating. He's tall. I'm tall. I'm like 6'3", but I think Bill is a little taller than me. He's tall and he gets right in your face. So what are you going to do? And I said, well, I'm going to do... I'm going to do this kind of stuff. He says, all right, you do that. That's funny. So I go out, and they have about 500 people in town getting ready to watch Bill and I do the street scene. First day of shooting, 6:30 in the morning.
Jeez.
Here we are, everybody in the town of Woodstock, Illinois is out there.
Right.
And I'm nervous, and we're starting to piece together where my blocking is. My heart is fluttering. And I look across the crowd, and there, standing in the front row of the crowd, is David Nichols.
Wow.
Now, David Nichols, I had only seen 3 other times in my life, from the first time he taught me comic technique in high school.
Right.
The next time I saw David Nichols was the first day I came out to Los Angeles. His brother, Chris Nichols, who was at SMU with me, said, well, call my brother David. He's working on the movies in Los Angeles. So I called up David when I first get out there. I said, David, I don't know if you remember me, but you taught me at Kimball High School. And he said, well, why don't you come out and have lunch with me? I'm working on this movie, New York, New York, and we'll have lunch together.
Wow.
So I went out, and my first day in Los Angeles, I sat at the table with David Nichols. Across from me was Robert De Niro. Next to him was Martin Scorsese. Next to, over on my side was Liza Minnelli. And this was my first day in Los Angeles.
Wow.
Then the next time I saw David Nichols after that was when I married my girlfriend, Anne.
Right.
On the movie Great Balls of Fire. David was working on the sets of Great Balls of Fire, Memphis, Tennessee. So I saw him on my wedding day. And now, first day of Groundhog Day. So you could say when there is a kind of synchronicity like that in your life,
yes,
you give it a word and say, it was fated. And some things in life are fated because of our desire. Now I'm getting back to your question.
Right.
How did I beat it? How did I beat the disease? You know, there's a chance that there'll be some disease come along, I'm sure, that I won't be able to beat.
Right.
But I felt like there was something inside of me that was screaming, there is something I need to do. I didn't know what it was yet. I was only 12, 13 years of age, but I knew I didn't want to sit in this damn study hall. I knew I was done with that. Like you're done with corporate America. I'm done with the damn study hall. You know, I'd rather read King Lear. I'd rather read Shakespeare. And so I felt it was not reaching out and being bigger that gave me strength. I felt it was coming in and being smaller that gave me strength and saying, I know this one thing is something that I love. And if I grab on to this thing that I love, it's going to take me to the next thing I love, rather than saying, here I am, world, Stephen Tobolowsky, sick as a dog, losing weight every day. You know, and and it was making myself smaller that enabled me to feel my purpose.
Wow, that is awesome. And it's just like fate. It just happens. It's like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to do. And just from doing that, that's absolutely amazing. So thinking a little bit about Groundhog Day, since you brought it up, I know we're going to get into it a little bit. It's obviously one of my favorite, movies. Obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of nerves, like you said, with Bill Murray, Harold Ramis, and Andy McDowell and Chris Elliott and all that. How do you prepare for something like that, though? Do you just kind of go there? What's sort of the method to how you prepare for a movie?
Well, ordinarily, you have to prepare for a play, for a television show, and for a movie differently.
Right.
For a play, you have rehearsal. Right. So if you're in a profession, and I'm talking about professional theater and not like just your, the PTA, which is also good, but it's a whole different thing. But if you're in professional theater, Lord Theater, League of Resident Theater, you usually have 3 weeks of straight rehearsal, then 1 week of technical rehearsal, and then you open. When you're on Broadway, you have up to 10 weeks. The 2 Broadway shows I did, you have like 10 weeks of rehearsal. So the idea of working on a play, you have to kind of find the parameters to be able to withstand the run of a play if you are successful.
Gotcha.
So during rehearsal, you're not only just learning your lines and learning what the scene is about, you're learning different ways to approach the scene. And the only way to keep a stage performance fresh is to, what they say, be in the moment. For example, if someone is to say, I love you, Joe, and they happen one night to go, I love you, Joe, then you have to respond, I love you too. You
Right.
have to be able to be in the moment and respond to the truth of what you're getting. And you have to, and you build those muscles up during rehearsal of the various different ways you could be truthful
Sure.
in the moment. You're building your sense of truth. And so you get into a run like I did Mornings at 7 on Broadway in 2001. That was the last Broadway show I did. And that was, we ran about 10 months on Broadway. We were a huge hit, 96% capacity. And then everybody, the actors said, we want to quit. Can you believe that? You're in a hit show on Broadway.
Right.
We were nominated for more Tony Awards than any other, what they call a straight play, a play without music in history.
Right.
And all the actors who lived in LA were saying, like, we're done. We don't want to maintain two addresses at this price. You're not getting paid a ton of money on Broadway. You can make a ton more doing TV in LA.
Right.
It's time to go home.
Yeah.
And so when you do a play, you are building your sense of truth for dealing with the long run. When you are doing a movie, you are going to probably be shooting a film over anywhere from 6 weeks to 3 months, depending on the budget of the film and how much they shoot. And so you're not shooting your stuff every day unless you're, Liam Neeson.
Right.
And then you're either shooting every day or practicing kung fu and weapon skills every day. You're doing something, but unless you're the lead of a movie, you have time off. And so what I do on a film is you get your schedule in advance and you really want to nail whatever your first scene is. And you really, whether it's your big scene, it may not be in sequence. It may be your last scene of the movie is the first thing you want to do first. So as an actor, when you're preparing, you have to prepare the entire arc of that part alone in your head.
Wow.
So you have to see what it is. So if the director says, okay, we're going to shoot your next to the last scene out of your 12 scenes, your 11th scene, you have to know where that scene is on the arc. So you have to evaluate who you are, what you're doing, what you want, and where you are at in that process with the script. So whatever scene they're doing, you could jump to it and you know your lines.
Right.
So all you're doing when you come onto the set is they're throwing you props. Like, let's say I did a couple Law and Orders. You go into the bar, you've worked out your lines, and then they give you a drink. Oh, here's your drink. What do you want?
Right.
Do you want, what kind? Oh, let's have it bourbon on the rocks or whatever. So they give you weak tea and ice, and you have to pretend now you're drinking bourbon. And then you have to remember in the instant what it's like when you drink bourbon and have it affect your performance. And so there are all sorts of techniques you have when you're working on a film or television show where you have to jump right into the beginning of where that scene is.
Gotcha.
And I call that technique learning what is the moment before zero.
Wow.
That's what a lot of actors don't think about when they're doing film and television.
Right.
Like they say in, let's say Law and Order, you're sitting at the bar for the beginning of the scene.
Right.
And it's, what is the first thing you would think about? I'm asking you, Joe, what is the first thing you're thinking about? You're sitting in a bar and you're going to be questioned on Law and Order Criminal or Law and Order SVU.
Right.
Yeah, sexual victim, yeah, whatever.
Right, yeah.
You're going to be questioned by Stabler or whatever.
Right, right.
Mariska is going to question you.
Yeah.
So you're at a bar as an actor. What is your moment before zero? Now I'm going to ask you. What would your moment before zero would be?
What would my moment be? Probably to, just breathe and relax and then just go with it.
First, you got to go with the specifics. Like what time of day are you at the bar?
Right.
So you look at the script, it's 4:00. 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, what are you
Gotcha.
thinking of your moment before zero?
Right. Yeah, you're probably thinking, well, it's 4 o'clock. It's kind of getting close to happy hour. I'm ready. That's if I'm in a bar. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Oh, I'm thinking like, what the hell am I doing at a bar at 4 in the afternoon?
Yeah, unless I got out of work early, or
And and
right,
I'm drinking, and I'm in New
right,
York, and I'm drinking a bourbon. Yeah.
right.
So
Yeah,
and so then the Stephen Tobolowsky thing says people only drink for a few reasons, very few reasons. They either drink to celebrate, they drink to mourn,
right.
they drink because they are addicted, or they drink by mistake.
Hmm.
That they're not thinking of what they're doing.
Right.
So you pick like, what is my situation, and that situation is going to get me to the moment before zero. So every time the bartender pours me that drink, I'm looking at the Coca-Cola going into the glass, whatever weak tea they're putting into for a drink,
Right.
and I am thinking I'm either here to celebrate, to mourn.
Wow.
I'm here. What is my moment? And that will always take me to the beginning of the scene, so that when the cops come in, they are interrupting something that's already happening.
Right.
So that is something you asked. We went into the weeds.
Yep.
This is what an actor does, like on a television show. And you really don't have a lot of time to think about it. So you have to go to these things quickly,
Right.
to be able to repeat a moment or a performance and have it be filled with the proper life.
Right. I was gonna say, yeah, you don't have a lot of time. Then you're just sort of thinking, okay, what is that moment of zero? And you got to say, okay, what is it? And then just go. Yeah.
Yeah, because in a movie, like I say, in a movie, you'll shoot that over 3 months. In a TV show,
Yeah.
TV show, you go shoot it in 5 days.
Right.
Silicon Valley, 5 days. Californication, 5 days. You go shoot an entire episode in 5 days. On a feature film, you're doing a lot. You are moving fast if you do 4 pages a day. Californication, we did 10 pages a day.
Wow.
So you gotta get ready to strap on the jet backpack.
Right.
You have to be very prepared before you walk onto that set, and you have to know what your moments before zero are, what it is you're really trying to get to where David Duchovny is interrupting this moment.
Wow.
So that's what brings truth to the screen.
That's amazing. I never actually thought of it like that. I mean, I knew I have a lot of friends and family, done some, my cousin's done some acting, been in some small, like, roles, like crowd roles in films. And I never thought that there was that much preparation. I knew there was a lot, but wow, it's a great way of putting it. Yeah.
There's a science, and there's one other thing I'll throw onto the fire. When you're doing a play, the hit of a play, the thing that thrills an audience in a play is the creation of reality. They're sitting in the theater. They know they paid tickets for this. They know you've been rehearsing. They know you got costumes and you memorize lines, but you sit there and you laugh and you cry and you applaud because suddenly you forget that all of this work went into this in this completely artificial structure, and you believe these people, and it's all made up. When you are watching a movie or television show, you know as an audience, this isn't real. Yeah. With every edit, every time there's an edit, your brain is aware of cameraman, editor. Whenever sound cue comes in, okay, the orchestra, the musician.
Right.
So you realize everything has been manipulated to present the story to you. So the hit of creating reality doesn't exist in film or television.
Sure.
The hit in movies and television is surprise.
Yeah.
So this is the good news for the actor, that if you do something ridiculous on camera and it's a surprise, it's probably going to work great. Yeah. If you do a terrible mistake, like Bill Murray in Groundhog Day, the one scene that really wasn't scripted was when I come over and he starts hugging me. And he goes
Right.
like, Ned, can you take the afternoon off? And that wasn't in this. None of that was in the script. And
Sure.
so, I'm like, "Yeah," and I run away. And
Right.
Harold Ramis is cut.
Yeah.
And I said, you have that? He says, oh, I shot it with 2 cameras on both sides. We got you both. That's it. We got it.
Wow.
Because the whole thing was a surprise.
Yeah.
Of course, Bill Murray's brilliant, but that
Yes.
helps. But
Yeah.
it captured surprise on film, so it works.
Wow. Now, with that scene with, you going back and forth with Bill Murray kind of the same day, talking, was that done over a couple days, or was that all done like within like a week or so? Or that scene for some reason always sticks out. I'm like, wow, it looks so perfect all the time.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's a great scene, but we shot it over 3 weeks, and there were initially 9 of those kind of street scenes,
Right.
with the repeated day of varying lengths, various edited forms of that scene. And then to make it more complicated, Harold Ramis had not decided what the day of the film would be, because the day, since it is repeated, has to be meteorologically the same.
Right.
Right? It has to. You can't have a repeated day that's rainy and then a repeated day that's sunny.
Right.
It's always the same day that's
Exactly.
repeated. So we are shooting about an hour and a half outside of Chicago, where the weather is highly changeable.
Right.
So Bill and I shot the 9 various street scenes in rain, snow, sleet, sun, and gloom. So when we had no schedule. Whenever the weather changed, we would get a
Right.
phone call, and we didn't have iPhones back then, you
Right.
know.
Sure. Yeah.
We had
Yeah. The
these
big phone.
army
Yeah.
things. Hello,
Yeah.
what are you talking? Saying, Stephen, you and Bill, come on down to the street. We're going to do the street scene in the rain. Okay. We're doing street scene number 4 in the snow. Okay. So we were on, so it took 3 weeks to shoot all of our stuff. But at the
Right.
same time, Bill shooting other parts of the movie. I was only doing those scenes.
Right.
And then I came back later in the shoot for a week to do the slave auction at the very end, where
Right.
I come back in and he bought all the insurance from me.
Yeah, I love that. It was just the way you did certain things and all was amazing. So why do you think Groundhog Day has really endured? I mean, for me, when I first saw it, it just resonated with me so well, and it never really hit me until like later in life. I started watching with my kids like about a year or 2 ago, and I was like, this is a really damn good movie. It just got so much in it. I mean, it's just
got
amazing.
So much in it. It's got so much in it. It's a film that is a comedy that is very funny.
Yeah.
But the comedy tends to disguise that it is a love story, which is very profound, which tends to disguise it is a metaphysical story of the perfection of a human soul at the heart of it. So a lot of times you look at a movie and you open it up and you get to the middle of it and there's nothing.
Right.
With Groundhog Day, you peel the layers back and you have a very entertaining movie the kids love.
Right.
And underneath that, you have a romance that is quite charming and endearing between Bill and Andy. And then underneath that, you have Bill's voyage, his odyssey, that ends up being the perfection of a highly imperfect human soul.
Right.
And that is something we all crave in our life. That's what I craved when I was sitting in the damn study hall. I wanted my soul to move to a new place, a better place than just sitting in study hall wasting this precious little thing we call life.
Right.
And that is why Groundhog Day endures, because it speaks the truth on at least those 3 levels. It's real comedy, real romance, and real good exploration of what it is that makes a happy life.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And just, I feel like too, everybody benefits in the movie. It's like, Bill's character grows, Andy grows, Chris Elliott grows, even like your characters in there, like and all the sub characters really grow a little bit too. You make out, you sell insurance, you kind of got through that, and just, the one guy saved. And I just, it's one of those things where I care if it's on middle of the summer, I'm watching it. So, and I'm like, it's crazy, but I'm like, one of those movies. It's like that. And I think Back to the Future are my favorite. I just sit there and there's such a great story there. And it's just a lot of good stuff. So switching gears just a little bit, you did Memento. What was that like? Because your character was in a lot of more basically flashback scenes. And I just loved it. But like, what was that like preparing for that? Obviously,
that was the most difficult thing I ever did.
Right.
It certainly is not a big part. It's an important part in the movie, but it was the most difficult part I ever did because I learned, unfortunately, when I was on the set, that what drives an actor through a scene successfully is his motivation. What is it that you want in the scene? But I saw when I was on the scene with Harriet, my wife, and Chris Nolan, our director, and Guy Pearce, he's coming in, and we're like, I'm going like, oh, I can't remember what I want to do. I have amnesia. And I had nothing to hang on to drive me through a scene. So I said, Stephen, you have one or two choices once the camera started rolling. You either have to go with it and be truthful and stink the joint up if it goes nowhere and just do nothing. I mean, be bold and pretend like you can't remember the last thing you did, or pretend you have amnesia and kind of, look odd and like look around and fake it. And so I chose to try to really do it because I thought, well, this, Chris Nolan guy, he's this young director, he's just starting out, he's some experimental director. He won't care if I pay a little. Then I know he'd be the biggest director in the world.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing.
Very difficult.
Yeah. That's amazing. So what has the Goldbergs been like? I know that's obviously, with TV and everything and a little bit different preparation, but that's endured as well. So what's that been like for you? And I know you've been in principal roles so much too. So I think it's a good natural fit for you in a way.
Yeah. Again, with television, you have to realize that they're moving very quickly.
Right.
And so in a way you have to grab onto the few things that, you are as principal. But the difficulty with the Goldbergs, because the show is so good and so successful and has been on TV now 8 years,
right,
is that some of the people that are writing the show are not the same people that were writing the show when my character appeared 7 years ago,
Yeah,
so, there is a plot point at the beginning of the Goldbergs in which Beverly Goldberg has introduced me to my wife. And that's what she has over me, is that she keeps playing that card, Earl.
Right.
You'd be a sad sack if it weren't for me introducing you to. Well, along the way, that which to Earl Ball, me, would be a very important plot point. Like my whole love life is based on this woman, so I owe her something.
Right.
But now you have writers, I think, who weren't even born when the show started.
You
have this whole new group of writers, and so they're writing a whole new thing of who Earl Ball is and what Earl Ball is and what I'm doing. So in a way, you have to, the difficulty of the Goldbergs is that you can't live by yesterday's script. You can't go by the things you learned 4 or 5 years ago on this character. You have to go from what you have in the current script and what the important needs are in this script. And to help you with that, you have a phenomenal cast. I get to do so many of my scenes with Wendy McClendon Covey. She's just so great. It's just one of the best casts ever. We always have absolutely delightful directors.
Right.
The producers are terrific. The camera people are, we've known each other for 8 years now. They're absolutely great. So it is this completely well-oiled machine.
Right.
So you are helped on the technical side of it because you're working with all these people that you're kind of friends with after all this time.
Yeah. That's interesting. That's neat. Wow. So you've done, it's amazing just watching your career and seeing all these things that you've done and everything. So what would you say is probably the greatest success? If you have to pick one thing out of your career, what would be your greatest success?
Okay. I'll throw you a curveball.
Oh, I like this. I like this.
The greatest, truthfully, Groundhog Day is certainly the greatest part I played because I was good in a good movie that everybody saw. And
Right.
it's an extraordinarily good movie.
Right.
So that's really lucky, and it's a great success. But for me, in my heart, the greatest success was before any of that ever happened, before I had an agent, and I'd just come out to Los Angeles, and the only job I could get was in children's theater. And so it was, I think we had a 3-person company driving around in my car. We're all wearing leotards. You know, I wore the red leotard, and then the girl in the group had the blue leotard, and then Rick, who was one of our musicians, he was in the yellow leotard. We had puppets, and I played the guitar and the piano, and we sang songs, and we had this show. God, it was in the era of Jimmy Carter.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, in the era of Jimmy Carter. So it was really what really was coming to the fore was they wanted heroes from different ethnic groups. That was the show that was sold to the schools. Multi-Ethnic American Leaders Part 1, or MEAL, we used to call it, MEAL 1. And so we did the story of Lewis and Clark and Elizabeth Blackwell, the first woman doctor, and Jean-Baptiste Pointe-Sable, the black man who founded Chicago, Manjura Nakahama, Junipero Serra,
Yep.
all these different ethnic, and we did, the three of us put on beards and hats and puppets, and we did the story of these people. So we usually performed for anywhere from like 1st to 6th graders, you know, and occasionally we branched off into junior high. We got called from here, LA, to go up to San Francisco, that there was a school where they were having race riots. It was a high school outside of San Francisco. 2 of the students had been killed. We were asked to come up and do multi-ethnic American leaders for this group of people. Not only will we not normally do this show for high schoolers,
Sure.
but we were brought to the school under police escort.
Oh my gosh.
We went on stage, the shouting, the catcalling. You have an audience of maybe 2,000, right? A school auditorium.
Sure.
And they were throwing Coke cans at us, not empty Coke cans, but cans full of Coke. So if that thing hits you, it'll knock you out.
Yeah.
It'll cut your eye, you know. And I'm there like playing the guitar. I'm Lewis, he's Clark, and we are about to embark on a journey that will take us far away. You know, ba-ba-da-da-da.
Right.
I'm Lewis, and he's Clark. And, you know, I mean, it was that kind of a show. So we get on stage with our leotards and our puppets, and people are booing and throwing things at us, and we keep playing. And we get to the middle of the show, and the catcalls kind of stop. And then we get to the last couple stories, Elizabeth Blackwell, which is such a beautiful story about the first woman doctor and what she had to go through to become a doctor. And Jean-Baptiste Pointe-Sable, the black man who founded Chicago. And
Right.
Rick Fitz, who played that part, has such a beautiful voice. So I played the last song on the piano, and he sang. And the audience then was quiet by the end of our little 40-minute show. And the audience was quiet, and then they started cheering. And then they stood up and they started stomping, and we bowed and we went off the stage. And then the principal said, "Go on back out." We went back out, and everybody was cheering for us.
Oh my
and
gosh.
we walked off the stage. We got a letter from the Daly City. This is Daly City outside San Francisco.
Right.
Superintendent of schools saying that the riots had stopped. And he said that he feels the primary reason for their peace in the school was our performance. And it was at that time, like me in my damn study hall, where I'm going like, this is what art can do. Art can heal. Art can create bridges where there were none. Art can change the entire world, even if you're wearing leotards, even if you're doing hand puppets.
Right.
And it made me feel like it was certainly the greatest success of the most import of anything I had ever done. And still, I think it's true because it had such profound implications for the rest of my life that this is an important profession you're in. And it's in a profession that, like in Groundhog Day, can change people when they see it.
Right. It moves you. It makes people change. It makes people grow. It makes people happy. And
right.
That's something. That's amazing. Wow. Unbelievable. That's something to go through that, to get up on there and you're kind of getting booed off stage, you're getting cans at you. And then all of a sudden to turn people around like that, can't even imagine.
And here is another curlicue of that story because of the success of that and the word of that performance of Twelfth Night. At one of our next performances of Twelfth Night up in the San Francisco area, Governor Jerry Brown came to see us.
Oh my gosh.
and he stood at the back of a school auditorium as we performed in San Francisco and named Twelfth Night Repertory Company the official theater company of California.
Wow.
Our little
thing. Right.
Lewis, he's Clark, and we're about to embark. But I got to say, the people in Twelfth Night Repertory Company were pretty damn good. One of them was Brian Stokes Mitchell.
Right.
Who huge star on Broadway now. I mean, we had some really, really super talented people in that group. So, it was a good group.
That's amazing. So if I'm somebody that is looking at a career in acting, what would be one piece of advice that you could give me if I want to break into acting today? Like, what would you say is probably the most important thing to do?
Oh, God. And now, it depends who you are and what your age is.
Sure.
Like, if I'm talking to a young student.
Yeah, like a young student, let's say.
If I'm talking to a young student, I would say, like, okay, would you be happy being an actor or an actress if you weren't a big star? Would you be happy being an actor or actress if you weren't ever in a movie or a television show? Would you be happy being an actor or an actress if you had to work for free? You did plays at the community theater for free.
Right.
You had to take on another job to support your love of being an actor and actress. Could you do that? If you could do that, you could be an actor. If you are into act, I talk to kids all the time in high schools and career day, and everybody wants to be an actor and actress because you're famous or you make a lot of money or you do this. You will fail if that's what your goal is. But if you love what that is so much you could do it for free and take a second job to support it, you will be able to succeed. Now, in terms of skill, you should always be in an acting class. Even if you know how to act, always be in an acting class because you're always learning new things. And you should read plays. Fill your head with great literature. Read Shakespeare like I did. Read Moliere. Read Tennessee Williams and Eugene O'Neill and Ibsen and Chekhov and Shaw. Read those plays and fill your mind with those great ideas that read Sophocles and Euripides and Aeschylus. Read those guys. They were great too. Read what great theater is and you fill your mind with great values. Because believe me, as time goes on, there is in any profession attrition and things get dumber and dumber and worse and worse and worse. So you got to aim high to end up in the middle.
Wow. And always be learning. That's what I teach people.
Always be
always
learning.
Got to grow. Yeah. You always have
be learning.
Right. Wow, that's something. So now you're doing the Tobolowsky Files, which is like a podcast. So you've been doing that for a while. Is that a big passion of yours now? And where's that going to go to
It was
now?
an accident. The whole thing was an accident. I was at home recovering from a broken neck, and a student at Harvard, David Chen, had seen a storytelling movie I did called Stephen Tobolowsky's Birthday Party, and he said, would you like to do a podcast telling your stories, your true stories? And I said, yeah, what's a podcast? is how Neolithic I am. So I had no idea. He says, just write stories and we'll record them and we'll put them on the thing that's called the internet. And so David basically was working for Slash Film, which is one of the biggest film websites. And he wanted the Tobolowsky Files to be me telling film stories. So I think I did, the first was like Great Balls of Fire, and then I did Wild Hogs. I did three of them, and then my mother, when it was time to do the fourth one, had a heart attack in Dallas, and she had had one 10 weeks before. And I rushed home to be with her, and she never regained consciousness. And she passed away the next day. And I wrote a story called The Alchemist, which chronicles the last 24 hours of my mother's life and my memories of my mother going back. And I told David, I said, this is not a movie podcast. I said, this is what I have this week. And he said, Tobo, let's see what you got. So we put The Alchemist out. It went all over the world.
Wow.
On the internet, everywhere. I started getting emails from England, Ireland, Scotland, Germany, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Brazil. I start getting emails from all over people who heard this story, The Alchemist story, number 4 of the Tobolowsky Files. And David said, Stephen, it's not a film podcast anymore. Now it's just whatever you want to write. Right. So I began writing stories, true stories. We put one out a week, either a film or TV and an acting story, a lot like we've been discussing today.
Sure.
Or stories about me growing up or my sickness or the first girl I fell in love with when I was 8 years old. Just different things. And we did this podcast. We did about 20 episodes, and Microsoft said, we'll sponsor you.
Oh, wow.
We'll give you $1,000 an episode if you'll do a couple commercials in it. And I said, David, do you want to do that for $1,000? I mean, and so we said no. So we kept it free.
Right.
And now we have 99 episodes. And I'm going, oh God, we could have had so much money. But,
sure.
but the great thing about doing it for free is that nobody can tell me what I could say and not say. Right. I could do what I do is I tell true stories is what it is. And it led to 2 books with Simon & Schuster. It led to free trips to I went to New Zealand and I performed in New Zealand, about 3 trips to England. I performed in England. I performed for Queen Di's family at a castle in England doing my podcast for free. All for free. They paid me, all for free.
Right.
I've been to, Scotland several times. I did the Edinburgh Fringe Fest, and I get all of these trips and all this stuff. They just say, "Can you come and do your stories?" Gosh. So there have been other benefits besides money,
right?
And right now, I love it, especially during a pandemic. God, I love it during a pandemic. Because I have time to write and put them up. So we just finished the 99th episode. It's all for free. It's at Tobolowskyfiles.com. So you can listen to it. Most of the stories are funny.
Right.
We had NPR and PRI radio stations. I had no idea what this was, but, they just wrote me at home and they said,
Right.
can we put your stories on the air? And I go like, sure. So they put them on for free. So NPR and PRI had my stories on in various cities. I know Seattle and Boston and Chicago, Louisville. And I have no idea. I go to a town and suddenly all these people show up and, they're wearing like Tobo hats and stuff because they've been
my God.
listening to my show at midnight on the radio on their
Wow.
NPR station or PRI station. So, you don't have to do stuff for money
Right.
for good things to happen.
And that's got to send chills when you impact people like that, and especially like you said, for free. And like for me, it's like this thing, it's like, the pandemic kind of born this out of it. I was like, I want to hear people's stories. I want to talk to people and kind of listen and find out what's going on. And I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's like I get up out of bed. I'm like, okay, I got to do next one. I want to do the next one. So just like that. So that's great. Wow.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's next for you now?
What's next? What's next is the next group of podcasts, which I'm currently writing.
Great.
And the last group I wrote, they all seem to have a theme, and they're real life stories that go off of a different theme.
Right.
So the last group of stories was kind of about how we base our life around the narrative that we choose for ourselves, like me in the study hall. What's your
Right.
narrative? You're a loser, you're dying. It's your choice as to what your narrative is going to be. But what determines that narrative? What is it? Is the narrative all created by you, or is it something that is intrinsically born into you that you are completely unaware of? And
Right.
this is a true story of one of the jumping off points for this last group of 16 stories I have. And that is, I was reading Carl Jung. And Carl Jung had this amazing experience where he was going to an art gallery looking at drawings by the alchemists from the 14th, 15th, and 16th century, right?
Right.
Drawings of the alchemists. The alchemists were the people who were trying to turn lead into gold, and they believed that there was the philosopher's stone and there was the primary element and all these weird things they believed in. It was the precursor for science. In
Right.
fact, they figured that alchemy started in ancient Egypt, and it actually in human history has existed longer than science. If
Right.
you want to say science kind of started with Isaac Newton, there's been more alchemy than science in our world. So
Right.
anyway, Carl Jung is writing this in the early 1930s. He's going to this art gallery, and he's looking at these paintings and sketches and drawings by the alchemaic scientists, philosophers, and he's shocked because the images and the pictures that he's looking at are identical to the stories some of his patients have been telling him this week that they saw in their dreams. And so he's going, how is this possible that I have a patient last week who tells me what she dreamt, and it's the image that I'm seeing in this picture that was painted in the 1500s? And as Jung is describing this happening to his patient and describes the pictures at the gallery, he describes one of my dreams.
Wow.
The exact dream I had, where I die. In my dream, I'm falling through space. I die and I end up in the middle of a park. And a woman comes up to me, a very lovely woman, and she tries to explain to me what has happened. And she said, it'll take a while for you to understand, but, you died and we're here now, and you could spend as much time as you want here, And I said, but I can't be dead because there are other people that I love that are on earth, my family, my girlfriend, I got to see them.
Right.
And she said, no. Time is different here than it is on earth. And so all those people you love will be here in the next minute or two. So you don't have to worry about that. Just know that, and I know what this woman looks like. I mean, I saw her face. I know what her face is. If I were to walk down Hollywood Boulevard and I saw her face, I go like, I saw you in my dream.
Right.
But this is the dream that Jung talks about, that one of his patients was talking about dying and landing in a park, and a woman, lovely woman dressed in a veil, comes up to him and guides him. And then Jung, in his book, he shows the picture from the art gallery, and it's this woman, and I'm going like, that's what she was wearing in my dream.
Oh my gosh.
What difference is there between the 1500 drawing and me in 2020 with this dream? So is our narrative framed by our imaginations, or is it fed by something that goes to a deeper well? Is that the beginning of our beliefs or the beginning of our superstitions, or both? And so I have a group of stories about events that happened to me that were based on what my narrative was.
Right.
And whether I was controlled by my narrative or whether I controlled my narrative.
Wow.
And they're all true, true stories of doing shows in New York, doing movies, falling in love, falling out of love, getting my heart broken, all these 16 stories, but they all have to do with the touchstone is the narrative, and the touchstone is Carl Jung in this last group of stories.
That's awesome. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, Tobolowskyfiles.com. Yes. And it's all for free. No one will call. We don't have the technology to do that. We can't trace you.
There you go. And we'll be putting this out there. So I really appreciate your time today, Stephen. This has been wonderful. I've learned a lot, and I just love what you do. And just your authenticity, just being genuine, and how you are has obviously shaped many, many people's lives. So thank you so much for joining me today and going down this journey.
My pleasure. And good to talk to you too, Joe. It's a very unusual thing you're doing, so congratulations with that.
Thank you. And as Ned, I guess, would say, bing, we're on to something here somewhere.
Or watch out for that first step. It's a
doozy. Oh, my God. Thank you so much. Everybody, Stephen Tobolowsky.
Adios.
Was that not a fun interview? I mean, seriously, guys, think about this. We had one of our finest character actors of our time interviewed, talking about Groundhog Day, the Goldbergs, Broadway plays, how he got his early start. And I think one of the most fascinating points he brought up, what is the moment of zero? When we're talking about Law and Order, you're sitting in a bar, you've got the whiskey, what is your moment of zero? That really struck a chord with me, and I think that could be something that anybody can use in life. What is your moment of zero when you're getting ready to interview for a job? What is your moment of zero when you have to make a critical decision or a really tough decision in life? And really, when you think about what he had said, it's all about preparation and practice. You keep moving forward, but you take additional acting lessons like he did. You keep refining your skill. You keep honing your skill. It's all in the preparation and practice. And I think that's why it shows. He's been in over 200 movies, television shows, and Broadway plays. He's had a successful run on the Goldbergs, and one of his most, I think, interesting roles is in Memento. So hats off to you, Mr. Stephen Tobolowsky. Thank you so much for joining us on the Career and Life Show. And as you said, watch out for that first step. It is a doozy. Thank you again, and we'll see you next time.